Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar that I'm holding today for you. I'm just going to share my screen with you so you can follow along with me as I go through my slides. But today we're going to be covering the unit Manage Risk and focusing on Assessment 1 to begin with. Alrighty. So, as I've said, today we're focusing on Manage Risk and Assessment Task 1. That's very exciting. You're near the end of your Diploma of Business, so keep on powering through, and I'm sure these webinars will be able to assist you. If not, get in contact with your mentor and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So the purpose of today is for you to get a really good understanding of the topic Manage Risk and also how to handle Assessment Task 1 and answer it effectively and be able to move on to your next assessment task. So this session is going to run, obviously, with me going through each of the questions throughout the assessment task. I'm going to share my screen with you throughout the course of the webinar, so do bear with me. Yeah, I'll go over each question and give you as much advice as I can on answering each and every one of them. So how can you get the best out of this webinar? Make sure you are ready with your assessments. Now with this assessment task, there are quite a few attachments. So please have the assessment task opened up and the appendixes A, B, C, and D, okay, to help you follow me and go through each of those attachments. What happens after this webinar? You go away and complete the assessment task. As I said, get in contact with your mentor if you do need any more assistance or guidance on the questions. We'll be happy to help you. But if you feel quite comfortable with the work you've put together, please feel free to upload it and we will get it marked for you within 24 hours. So let's get started. I'm going to bring up our assessment task, so just bear with me. Okay, so assessment task 1. First off, the purpose of this whole unit is for you to really analyse either an organisation or an event your organisation is putting together or some sort of factor of your business and see if you can identify any risks that are associated, like I said, with that organisation or with some sort of, event or structure they have going at the moment, just to ensure the safety of the business and the people within. So looking at assessment task 1, we're going to start off with part A. So for the first part of this assessment, you do need to think of a charity organisation that you can base this whole assessment task on. Okay, there are many charities out there that you can choose from. You're not limited to any particular charities. So you've got anything from, the Cancer Council, Salvation Army, RSPCA, Breast Cancer Association, any organisation that you either, you might have some sort of affiliation with, or you might have, personal reasons as to why you want to choose that charity. But you can choose any charity to complete this assessment task on. So for part A of this assessment, for the organisation, you are a risk management consultant contracted to a charity organisation to conduct an organisational risk assessment. You are required to develop a risk management plan, including how this plan would be implemented, monitored and evaluated for the effectiveness. So we've given you a link to have a look at to try and find a charity of your choice to move forward with this assessment task. So for the first question in this assessment task, you need to do a stakeholder analysis. Okay, so you need to list and describe the internal and external stakeholders the company has involved with or believed to have involvement with. Okay, so that's anyone from the staff members that work at the charity, the governing body that maybe supports this charity, any public people that frequent the use of this charity. Okay, usually if you jump on the charity's website, you'll be able to try and search for a stakeholder analysis, but it's anyone that has any form of interest within that organisation. When you start to look at the internal stakeholders, they are people such as the staff members that work for the organisation, and when you start to look at external stakeholders, we're looking at more potentially governing bodies that assist that organisation, or any sponsors outside of that organisation that assist that charity. Okay. The next question here is to determine the scope of the risk, of risk management. So this is where you're going to think about, are there any procedures or what's important or included in this organisation that you would identify as a potential risk to the organisation? Okay, so having a think, if that charity is to stand alone, what risks are involved with that charity? Are they at risk of potentially having governing bodies withdraw sponsorship from them? Do they have the risk of sponsors not wanting to sponsor them anymore? Do they have the potential to have any bad publicity published about them? Okay, and if so, what would be the repercussions? So just identifying any form of risk that could be associated with that charity. Okay, the third question is conducting a SWOT analysis on the political, economic, social, legal, technological risks affecting the charity organisation. Okay, so what you need to do is try and think of any form of, I guess, strength. So SWOT analysis, sorry, I'll start with explaining what a SWOT analysis is. SWOT analysis is looking at the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. Okay, so looking at the charity, seeing what strengths they have involved in terms of their political, economic, social, legal, and technological status. Okay, then looking at their weaknesses. What weaknesses are associated with political, economic, social, legal, and technological? And same with opportunities and also threats. Okay, so if I was to think of the charity, the RSPCA, okay, a strength of theirs in terms of political could be that they have a really good association with a governing funding body. Okay, they might have a really good relationship with the Australian government, enabling them to receive a lot of funding from the government to support the work that they do. Okay, a weakness of theirs in terms of social media, for instance, could be that they might not have a Facebook page. Okay, that could be a weakness for them, moving out into, you know, potential avenues to advertise for themselves or to draw in more business for them. Okay, in terms of an opportunity for again, so social, an opportunity of theirs could be to create a Facebook page or to jump in on Instagram. Okay, and threats, for instance, in a technological way, could be that they have the threat of someone hacking their website and taking multiple customers and sponsors' credit card details and using them in a fraudulent manner. Okay, so you just need to have a look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and one for each: political, economic, social, legal, and technological. Okay, and create a little 2x2 table to insert that into if you want to. If not, just simply list under the heading strength your political, economic, social, legal, and technological response, and so forth, all the way through weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, question 4, determine the main risk in one of the factors listed in the question above that has the potential to disrupt the organisation, and describe the impact of that risk. Okay, so of all the risks associated with what you've just identified in your SWOT analysis, you need to choose one of them. okay, and use that risk to describe the impact that it would have on the organisation if it was to occur. So for instance, with the technological example that I gave in terms of hackers jumping onto their website and taking a lot of credit card details, what kind of risk would that have on the RSPCA? Okay, would it have the risk associated with the fact of them paying back monies to people that have had funds stolen from them from their hackers, or these hackers? Would it impact people wanting to donate to them again because they wouldn't feel safe handing over their credit card details to their website, thinking that they have the potential of being hacked once again? Okay, so just having a look at one of the risks that you've identified in your SWOT analysis and thinking how could that impact the organisation, okay, if it was to occur. Okay, alrighty, that's part A covered. Now we're going to look at part B, where we're going to be using those multiple attachments that I've spoken about that I'll need you to have downloaded from your LMS. So part B for the event, okay, locate one event that the organisation is planning and complete the items 1 to 9 below. Confirm with your manager or facilitator on your selection. Within your plan, there needs to be clear evidence of a systematic approach to the identification of risk, the analysis and evaluation of risk, and development of plans to implement, isolate or protect people and or equipment in the event of potential negative event occurring. Okay, so first, I guess you need to come up with an event that the charity runs. So for instance, jump on their website, see if there's any events occurring for them to generate some fundraising. You know, RSPCA might have a pause walk event coming up. Cancer Council always have multiple events coming up. There could be a fun run associated with a charity. So jump on, have a look and source out an event that is coming up that the charity that you've chosen is running, okay? And I just want you to name the event for us under question 1 here and give a brief description of what the event is, and also what risks are associated with the event and potential how you're going to manage those risks, and a bit of a success criteria, success factors involved in managing that risk. Okay. Now, for question 2, the risk identification. So sources of risks are clearly documented on a risk register, risk analysis and risk evaluation, and undertaken by the charity organisation. Please choose an event that you will require a reasonable amount of risk assessment and complete a risk register for. Okay, so I'll need you to download Appendix A for me, and I'm just going to bring that up on my screen for you now. So back in Assessment Task 1, Appendix A, Risk Register Template. Okay. So this is what your risk register will look like. You need to state the activity or the event up the top. It's compiled by yourself and the date that you've put it together. Okay, then you need to think about what kind of risks would be associated with this event. Okay, you're not limited to any risks. There could be risks associated with the weather. There could be risks associated with people pulling out. There could be risks associated with your equipment or the venue that you've hired. It's completely up to you. Okay, but in your first column there, headed the risks and what can happen, this is where you just need to think about, okay, what risk is involved, what can happen, how can that risk happen, and you need to just include some information on really descriptive information on, like I said, how that risk can happen. Okay, it's all well and good to say, you know, there's a risk associated with somebody hurting themselves or members coming to the organisation or the charity event and hurting themselves, but we want to know exactly how they would hurt themselves. Okay, so be really descriptive there. Then you're going to look at the consequences. Okay, so what's the consequences of the risk happening? So for instance, if someone if it was a pause for walk charity event for the RSPCA, okay, and someone was to get hit by a car, what is the consequence of someone getting hit by a car to not only that person, but to your charity organisation? Okay. You're looking at, injury for the person, but then potentially going on and your charity organisation is running the risk of being sued for that person being injured. Okay. Then you need to look at the likelihood of this happening. Okay. Is it almost certain that this is going to happen? If so, put almost certain into this column. Is it likely? Is it possible? Is it unlikely or rare? Okay, so they're your options to choose from. Almost certain, likely, possible, unlikely, and rare. Okay. The next column, adequacy of existing controls. Okay, this is where you're going to think about what controls do you have in place that if that risk was to happen, it would potentially overcome that risk or reduce the impact that the risk has potentially on the event. Okay. You need to think about whether or not your control is adequate, and if it is adequate, explain how, or if it is not adequate, if it's inadequate, and how is it inadequate. Okay. Your consequence rating, the next column, is looking at the risk matrix and thinking, is the consequence insignificant if this risk was to happen? Or is it minor, moderate, major, or catastrophic? Okay, depending on what impact that risk would have on the charity if it was to occur. Okay, your likelihood rating, again, is it almost certain? Is it likely, possible, unlikely, or rare that this risk is going to occur? Okay. Then your risk rating, you need to put a risk rating score in the final column, and I'm going to bring up the matrix that you need to look at for this. It's in your attachments. So a risk rating score is a number and a letter associated in one of these boxes. Okay, so is it 1L telling us that it's quite low? Is it 2 for moderate? It's needing a little bit of follow-up. Is it 3 high, being that this is quite a severe risk that could happen, needing a lot of high management around it? Or is it 4 acute? Okay, something needs to be done. We need this risk attended to immediately. Okay, so use this risk table here for you to complete this last column of your risk register. Okay, so that's Appendix A completed. The next appendix that you need to open up is Appendix B. And I'm going to download this one for you right now. Alrighty, so back to your assessment task as well to follow on with the question. Oh, sorry. Okay, next question, question 3 is volunteer risk. You must include the risks to the volunteer of the organisation as part of 2 above. Okay, so you've got to think about all the volunteers that will assist you in making this event possible. Okay, and what kind of risks are associated with them volunteering their time to work at this charity event for you? Okay, are they potentially manning a road in terms of a fun run? They're barricading off some sort of roads or guiding runners on their course. Are they at risk of potentially being hit by a car? Or if they're standing outdoors all day and it's a really hot day, are they at risk of potentially suffering from heat stroke from being out in the elements all day? Okay, so looking at your charity event and thinking, what volunteers would I have on board working for us and helping out on the day, and what risks are associated to them? Okay. Next question, question 4, is your risk treatment schedule and plan. So you need to download Appendix B, which I've already done, and I'll bring that up for you now. So you must use the 4-stage hierarchy process model to conduct this risk assessment. Okay, so if we open up Appendix B, the risk treatment schedule and plan, this is what it should look like. So again, fill out the top section in terms of your charity event, who it's compiled by, which will be yourself, and your date. Okay. This is where you're going to think of as many risks as you can associated with your event. Okay. Using the first column here, risks in priority order from your risk register. So taking the risks that you've identified first off in your risk register and putting them into this template, ensuring that both this template and your risk register, you've thought of as many risks as you can. And the difference in this risk treatment schedule and plan, you're actually going to be listing your risks in priority order. Okay, thinking what is the biggest risk to our charity and working through them until you get to your minor risks. Okay, so when you look at your second column, which is your treatment options, I want you to come up with 2 treatment options for this risk. Okay, so 2 ways that you're going to ensure that that risk doesn't happen, or if it does happen, what have you got in place to treat the risk? Okay, so 2 treatment options to put in the second column. Then your preferred option. Okay, so you then pick one of your options and move forward with that option. Okay, for example, say you were doing a charity event that's a fun run associated. Okay, your risk involved could be the fact that it could rain and completely wash out your event. Okay, treatment options for this, you could have a second date in mind, that if for some reason the event was washed out on that day, you could postpone it and move it to another day. Or another treatment option would be to cancel the event altogether and not have it run for the year. Okay, your preferred option, sorry, I've just had a reminder pop up. Your preferred option moving forward would be whatever you deem to be the most sensible and preferred option. Okay. Then you need to think about your risk rating after the treatment. Okay, so again, this is where you're going to use that matrix that I brought up on the screen for you. Right here, the 4-stage hierarchical process. For you to, again, give a risk rating associated with this numbering matrix. Okay, so 1 low, 2 moderate, 3 high, or 4 acute. Okay, that would be the numbering system that you would slot into risk rating after treatment. Then you need to decide the cost-benefit analysis result. Okay, based on that treatment that you've put into place. Would you accept this or would you reject it? Okay, so you want to state whether or not you would accept this option of overcoming this treatment, of this risk, or you would reject this option of overcoming the risk, and why. Okay, could you accept it because it's going to ensure that the event moves forward with minimal risks associated, or would you reject it because it would just not be financially possible for the organisation to put such treatment involved? Okay. Then you will want to look at the person responsible for the implementation. So is it someone on your team that is responsible for implementing this treatment? And if so, who is it and what would their title be? Okay. Then you want to look at the timetable for implementation. Okay. When does this preferred option need to be implemented by? Okay. In your lead up to the event, when does it have to be sorted that that will be your preferred option if this risk was to occur? Okay. And then the final column, how to monitor the risk and the treatment options. Okay, what would you use to monitor your treatment option and if it was successful or not, and if you would do that for another event that your charity was to hold if that potential risk was involved again. Okay. So again, looking at your risk register that you've initially put together, putting all of your risks in here in priority order, so most acute through to your minor, and then working through looking at treatment options for that risk. Alrighty. Now we're going to go back to the assessment task and have a look at what's next, which is Appendix C. Okay, I'm going to move forward and open up Appendix C for you, back into the LMS. Appendix C is our risk action plan. Alrighty, this is what your action plan will look like. For this one, nice and easy, we only want you to choose one risk that you've identified, okay? Only use one risk for this whole table, okay? So again, fill out the top, what the event is, your name, person responsible, and the date, okay? Then up here for your risk, you need to detail the one risk that you've chosen, okay? Give us a really good description of what that risk is. Then the recommended response and impact, okay? So what type of response is required for this risk, and what would the impact of this risk have on the organisation, okay? Then looking at resources required. So what resources would you need to overcome this risk, okay? Would you need for potentially a rainy day? Would you need wet weather equipment to hand out to all volunteers staff? Okay, if it was an event that like a fun run and you had to block off some roads, would resources be the fact that you would need road barricades from your local council and the police potentially involved to help monitor your road blockages? Okay, then looking at responsibilities within your team, who is responsible for this risk and what is their role in handling this risk? Who would they be speaking to? Who are they liaising with? What kind of plan are they putting in place? Then your timing, how far out from the event does this risk action plan need to be put in place? Okay. Then looking at reporting and monitoring required. So what kind of reporting and monitoring would you need in place for on the day of the event and after the event has occurred to work out whether or not your response to the risk was effective? Okay. And then in your proposed actions, you want to put a list of actions, as many actions that you can think of in this far column here, okay, that you could potentially take if that risk was to occur. Okay, what proposed actions would you take? Alrighty. So not too bad for this one, just one risk to focus on and to come up with as many proposed actions as you could think of to overcome that risk, and having a look around the impact that it would have and the requirements and responsibilities of your team members, and also when you need to implement this, these actions. Okay. We'll jump back to the assessment task now and look at your next question, which is question 6. You need to, so details of implementation, monitoring and evaluating of the risk. So you need to fill out the risk management plan on Appendix D. So I'm going to jump in and download Appendix D for you now. Alrighty. So up the top here, you need to put the name of the charity, the date of the plan, and the date review. Okay. With this one, you need to come up with at least 3 potential risks on this management plan. Okay. When you do list your potential risk, again, don't just state the risk for us, give us some detail around the risk so we have a really good understanding of what it is. Okay. Then with your column action taken to reduce the risk, you need to detail some steps involved that you would take to reduce that risk, okay, and to ensure that it wouldn't happen or it would have the least effect on the organisation. Okay. Then your column for proof of action, what documentation or evidence would you be using to prove that the action has taken place and what impact did the action have on the risk? Okay. And that's it to that appendix. Not too much here to fill out. And as I said, just looking at 3 potential risks involved here. Okay. Alrighty, jumping back to the assessment task now. And question 7, so risk monitoring and intervention. So 2 of the risks that you have identified for the event above has now occurred. So in detail, you need to describe your intervention strategy or action plan to resolve the issue. Okay, so 2 of your risks have occurred at the event. Describe in detail what you did to resolve the repercussions of that risk happening. Okay, did you need to speak to any authority bodies? Did you need to attend to first aid immediately? Did you need to report your actioning to a higher body? Did you need to have some sort of cancellation policy in place? Okay. So 2 of the risks have occurred. You need to now put in detail your action plan that you use to resolve that risk. Okay. Now, question 8. Inadequacies in risk management practices are due mainly to insufficient training and education programs or insufficient monitoring, managing and reporting processes. So in 2 to 3 paragraphs, write a response to this statement with evidence of research on the topic. Okay. We've provided you a link here to help you answer this question, but I would encourage you to do your own research in regards to, answering this question. So you want to, for your couple of paragraphs here, talk about the fact that there is a lack of training when it comes to risk management and safety, okay, and that there is an insufficient monitoring out there, and all of this, you can avoid risks being set in place by simply ensuring that your staff members and your volunteers that are going to be working at your charity event are trained up and they are educated in the risks involved, and they are educated on the processes involved in managing a risk if it was to occur. Okay, and that would just really ensure that you would have an action plan put in place for multiple risks that would occur, and making sure you deliver that training to your volunteers and staff members prior to the event happening. Another reason that you can talk about within your answer here is a lot of people don't take risk management seriously. Okay, it's kind of that persona that it won't happen to me or it won't happen to us. Risks happen all of the time, and any company, big or small, has the potential of any risk associated with their event occurring if they don't put risk management in place. Okay, so you want to talk about the fact that it is vital that risk management is taken seriously and that training is put in place to your staff members and your volunteers. Okay, that goes the same for insufficient monitoring, and if you're not managing and reporting on the processes and following protocol when it comes to risk, that there will be repercussions further down the track in terms of risks either occurring or risks having repercussions to your organisation and consequences out of your control due to you not planning your risk management appropriately, okay, and having a think about the seriousness of each risk if it was to occur. Alrighty, so a couple of things to talk about there. The fact that people don't take risks seriously or risk management seriously, that there's a lot of lack of training involved and lack of monitoring involved when it does come to risk management. Okay, it's something that people kind of don't really prioritise, whereas it should definitely be looked upon with any event that's being planned. And then question 9, our final question for future trends. In 2 to 3 paragraphs, describe some of the risk and compliance issue trends the charity organisation will need to be concerned about. Okay, so again, do some research, but does your charity have the potential risk of an Australian governing body withdrawing their sponsorship that they put forward to that charity? Okay, or do they have the risk of getting a bad reputation for something that they've said that's gone public? Okay, or is is the risk, do they have a risk involved that they potentially aren't advertising as they should, and other companies are kind of going to come in and overshine them due to them not having their name out in the public as much? Okay, or could they have said something that they shouldn't have, that's been taken the wrong way, and the media have got their hands on it, and it's potentially impacted their ability to move forward and people to trust them or like their reputation and want to donate to them? Okay, so having a look at any forms of risk around compliance that the organisation needs to be concerned about, and again, just a couple of paragraphs there to answer your question. Well, that comes to the end of this assessment task 1. Like I said, please get in contact with one of your mentors if you do need any further assistance, that we're always happy to help. And once you've completed, please submit your assessment through and we will mark it for you. And we look forward to working on the next assessment with you. Thank you for your time, and I'll be speaking to you soon.